Hi, Alisha. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And I'm really looking forward for us to kind of dive into your topic of expertise. What I would love to do to start is for you to kind of share with our listeners what you're currently doing. We can then kind of back it up and talk about maybe how you got started or what motivated you to kind of become the health coach that you are now. So why don't you give us a little overview as to kind of what you're currently doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have my own private practice where I see clients one-on-one. I also actually work part-time at the oxygen chambers we have in Rochester, New York, where we do oxygen therapy, PEMF, we do ozone sauna, and we're going to be moving into some anti-aging protocols into the next year. So I kind of have that balance. I get to be at home a little bit with my babies and work, and then also get out into the community and serve, and just like an ongoing student of integrative health.
Oh, that's awesome. The oxygen chambers and all of that. That's so great. So it's an actual like facility where they have like all of these, you can just come and do like the PMF mat, or you can do the oxygen stuff. Yeah.
Yep. You walk in and it's like a little into the future vibes, to be honest.
So cool.
It's very cool. Yeah. And so we see, clients anywhere who are undergoing cancer treatments or people just looking for better sleep quality or digestive disorders. So yeah, we have 4 chambers. And then, like I said, we've got a couple other really amazing, integrative health, services we can offer clients. And it's a really grounding place to be, for sure. It's so nice to know that there's options out there for health.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of talk about how you got started. Have you always been doing this? Is it something that was kind of more recent? Give us a little backup to your story.
Sure. Absolutely. So I have been in like women's health, I would say, for 8 years, just independently. After some issues I had with hormones, I started to explore natural remedies and actually got really big into essential oils and herbs and just using different things to balance my body. I didn't respond well to the synthetic drug Provera. I took it. It's a synthetic progesterone. So when that happened, I just started to do my own research, and that was back in 2014. So then I started just helping women, just, hey, suggesting different herbs. This is what I use. People asked me how I was able to balance my cycle, friends, family. And it just kind of started that. I wasn't taking clients. I wasn't, charging for my time or anything like that. I just wanted to help people, help women. And it wasn't until I started the IHP where I was like, you know what, this definitely is the next career path for me, especially coming from a corporate world. Being able to have more quality time with people and with clients is really valuable to me. I always felt like in the previous places of employment, things were so rushed and all about like an exchange, like this really quick time for their money or things like that. And it's like, I didn't have enough time to get to those conversations that people really are wanting to have and needing to have. So getting into IHP and into the private healthcare and seeing clients one-on-one has just been really special. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like that is oftentimes, or at least the client feedback that I see so often is like, wow, thank you for this time. It's been like amazing to actually have the time to share my story or to have someone listen, because it can oftentimes be that like we do have so much to share, but like appointments are quick or practitioners aren't willing to like hear, X, Y, and Z side of the story. And they're just, focused on the solution. And so a lot of people are just dying to be heard. And that is such an important part, I think, of even a health journey, as far as how well you can get, right? How well do you feel connected to the people that are helping you? How heard and seen do you feel? So I think it's so important to have that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this like memory so strong that it has been, something I've incorporated into my practice. Or something I haven't incorporated is, I remember the first time I went to a follow-up for a doctor and they introduced like laptops, which this is going to sound like really old, but like she was on the laptop and she was like typing as she was talking to me, but she wasn't looking at me. And I was like I was in my appointment. She did not even look at me for the appointment. And then when she was done, she's like, okay, good. Everything looked good. Okay. Have a great day. And I was just like, I felt so like, oh, hey, like I'm here. And so I don't even have my laptop when I meet with clients. Like I have a notebook, I have my pad and paper, and I'll like put my notes and put everything and do my follow up with them after. But that memory was just, I was so like, I don't know if I was hurt by it or just I felt like not valid, And so for me as a practitioner, it's really important to validate my clients and let them whatever they want to speak about and whatever their concerns are. As a practitioner too, you hear the symptoms of people, what they're going through, and you kind of quickly want to address those. But for me, I see a lot of the emotions coming out, and I feel like without addressing that, it's going to be really hard to keep going to the deeper things. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to our next topic, which I would love for you to elaborate on. I think kind of your clients and maybe personal acquaintances and yourself will kind of identify you as more of this, emotional balance mindset type of expert. So I would love for you to elaborate on what role you think that has in someone's health journey, their healing process, and kind of touch upon whatever pieces you think are most important.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that the reason why this has been such a focus for me over the years is because while I've studied women's health and hormones, mostly the last 8 years, there's so much you can fix physically. There's so many different things you can try and herbs and oils and supplements and all these things. But I find that if you don't address the root of maybe like fear or something that's holding you back, you're going to always feel stuck. And even like if you get that physical energy back, I think in order to get to the next level of your health, you have to make sure you're getting through those blocks in your mind. It's just like, for example, a weight loss journey, like you can lose the weight, but unless you address like those emotions behind things, you might always you might have body dysmorphia or things like that. You're not seeing yourself for who you are. And so when I work with women, my main goal is to bring them into awareness, like awareness of your decisions, awareness of your emotions, awareness of, your thought process behind food and why you're gravitating towards that. I'm not saying don't eat that. Like you do what you feel like is best for your body. Like I actually am a huge fan of intuitive eating when done right. But you have to ask yourself, what is my intention behind this? And that goes for something you're eating, maybe something you're listening to, whatever you're letting into your mind. Because if you're letting it in your mind or your body, for example, like the food, then it's going to affect you in one way or another. So I find that in order to progress in your health or your healing journey, like it's just something you can't ignore.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sometimes it can be what either holds someone back, or what I see oftentimes is people make 70% of, an improvement. And then that last 30% of symptom improvement, or, that 30% of the weight loss, those types of things, it's like they can't break that plateau. And oftentimes that's where like our limiting beliefs come into play.
Yes.
Or like you said, not being able to understand that some of the choices that you're making that are maybe sabotaging the specific goal that you have a fear behind it, or have a, block behind it, and addressing those things allows us to kind of uncover that and move forward. But without the awareness, right? Because like you said, you can still eat the half a bag of potato chips at 9 p.m. at night if you want to, but having the awareness of why you're doing it's actually half the battle, even if you still do it, because then you can know better and perhaps do better the next time, right? Like it's not about doing the perfect thing. It's just being aware of the process.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that in itself takes time. Like you can't expect from yourself overnight that like you're going to shift all these mindset beliefs and that you're going to shift. And I think that's also why I enjoy being in this arena, because there's so many things out there about mindset, and people like make it seem like it's going to be this easy switch. And like, if you don't get it, like you're wrong. And then you're never going to fix it. And that's not true. It's like you even having the thought that you want to change something, that you have a thought that I think next year I want to be healthier, or like next year I want to start eating a little better. Like, congrats, give yourself that reward in your brain. Like, allow yourself to be like, you know what, that was a good thought. Like, and yes, it's just a thought, but it's okay. You didn't do anything with it yet. I feel like we're just too hard on ourselves. Like, we think that we need things to be 360, and it's not always going to be the case. And so show yourself grace and reward yourself for having that thought. I mean, I'm not saying to go crazy and go like, eat whatever, like reward yourself in that way. I'm just saying, like, reward yourself, be like at peace, have gratitude that you were able to have that thought. And then what's the next actionable step? So like, that's what I walk my clients through is, okay, great. You're either having this thought, great. That's awesome. What are you going to do with that? Or, oh, hey, you're having this thought surrounding XYZ, your food, your marriage, or, frustrations as a mom, your diet that week, you feel like you threw it out the window. Like, okay, you have this thought. Now what are we going to do with it? And you really break it down, and then kind of just release it. When you're able to release it and move forward, then the healing can continue. So.
Yes. Yeah. So that's interesting. And I think maybe some other IHPs that are listening are like, okay, so how do you break that down with a client? Say, they come to you and they're like, I just find it hard not to eat after dinner. It's when I put my kids to bed and it's when I get to like relax. So like, could you walk us through a little bit of a process of how you would help a client unpack that, specific emotion, behavior, thought process?
Yeah. Well, if you had said that to me as a client, I would say, I totally understand like having kids, and like I've had a client who her husband didn't get home until 9 p.m. and eating. And I'm like, I totally get that. We will work with what the structure of your family dynamic and the schedule. We can work with that. But why don't you tell me like, okay, when you did sit down to eat, what did you eat? And usually it's either could be, I had this nice healthy meal. I had what I planned on having, right? I had that thing I planned on having, or it's late, I'm hungry and I had something else. I went and I had this and then I continued to eat, and maybe it became kind of like a binge or something like that. So we would we would separate and see which way they went on that. And then even backtrack even more like, okay, so why don't you tell me about the start of your day? Like when you woke up, how were you feeling? What's the first thing you put in your body when you woke up? And then if you can unravel that entire day, then that nighttime makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense maybe why you had a trigger thought in your mind late at night, if you didn't fuel your body in the morning, if you didn't nourish your body, if you didn't have time to wash your face and get dressed and like feel good, or, those things make a big difference. So, a lot does depend on the steps that were taken throughout the day. But in that moment, I think it's good to, to see, was it a positive thought that you had about I'm finally being able to sit down and eat dinner. I feel so good. I'm with my, my spouse. We're enjoying this. Or is it, I feel so rushed and now I'm about to cram a bunch of food in my face. And like, now your digestive system is even more unhappy because you're stressed and now you're trying to eat. So a lot of it, as you know, too, like rest and digest, in that specific scenario with food, we want to just make sure like, and it's okay if you had dinner like later, if you had some munchies like later at night, but were you relaxed, or was this like an emotional standpoint of eating? So
yeah, which is so important, because and I always like, I have clients that they go on vacation and they're like, it's so weird. I went on vacation and I like drank and I ate food that wasn't bad for me, but I wasn't bloated. And I don't know, maybe it was just like the food it has nothing to do with the food that they were serving at that resort. It was that you were on vacation.
Relaxed.
You didn't have the stress of cleaning the house or wondering how you were going to get your work done, or it's such a relaxed environment. And most people are much kind of happier, right? Like that's just such a loaded word, but they're happier on vacation. And the body does not internalize those things as like this stress management, right? Like you're not having a glass of wine to get your, nervous system calmed down. You're having it because you're on vacation and you're happy. And I'm not saying you can drink wine and it will be healthy as long as you're happy, but it does what we put in our body, what energetic kind of relationship we put to that, does change how our body internalizes it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
It's helpful to, I think, walk, clients through, this is like secondhand speak to us, right? But when we're dealing with people who've never given any of this stuff any thought, or, we kind of just, we're in a modern day society where it's like, just put your nose to the grindstone, do what you have to do. And like you said, like we can be so busy all day that we literally never feel a single emotion. And then all of a sudden it's nighttime, it's quiet, and like it all comes up. And because it will.
Gosh, yeah.
You can't stuff emotions forever. No. You can do it for a while, but it will always rear their ugly head in one way or another.
They will. And I mean, like, to talk about that of like going and going all day. I remember that life like in corporate, and it's, and I feel for it, and I loved it for a while. Like I absolutely loved it. And until I had my babies, and I was like, I just didn't want to be away from them that long. But I remember being so anxious and so stressed at my desk and be like, you know what? I think I need a cup of coffee. I'm just going to go get another cup of coffee. And like, these are the thoughts that like, if I was my own client back then, I'd be like, well, what did you eat for breakfast? Like before you think about, oh, I need a cup of coffee. Like, what did you eat? I would have been like, oh yeah, I didn't eat breakfast, but you're going to have like more coffee. I'd be like, well, it's just those things. Does that make sense? Like, does that seem like that's going to nourish your body in the best possible way? And I don't mean it to be sarcastic. Like when I talk to my clients a lot, I'm asking, I'm just questioning. So like, they know I set that like, early on, like, hey, this is how I'm going to be. I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm going to question some things. It might be uncomfortable. Like, sorry, no, I'm not trying to offend you, but I'm trying to work through these thoughts that you're having. I'm trying to work through these emotions that you're having because it's a big part of your healing. And I get it. I've been there. Like, and I definitely like 7 out of 7 days would just go get another coffee. But now looking back, it's like, wow, how many women are just living like that? And like you said, the emotions just get to you. And then at the end of the night, and you outlet it in one way, right? One way or another, you're going to gravitate towards food. You're going to gravitate towards, maybe getting in an argument with your loved one. You're going to maybe do some good self-care, or maybe work out, or maybe work out too much. Like there's so many outlets that you can have. And like you said, if you don't address it though, it's just going to come out one way or another. And unfortunately, it's not always a healthy way. So
yeah. And always running on that kind of like stress hormone, right? Because people will always be like, oh, like coffee gives me energy. Well, it gives you energy because it increases your cortisol and adrenaline output. It's not actually giving you like cellular good energy that food gives you. And like, if you're not giving your body a fuel to actually keep up with the caffeinated push, right, that caffeine gives you, then you're just kind of like digging yourself further into the hole. And I think so many people men and women are doing that today. And it ends up leaving them feeling like they have an empty tank at the end of the day, like both energetically, but then also, it can be emotional too. It's such a, careful balance.
Yeah, definitely. And, you got to kind of think too, where the thought patterns come from. Like, for me, like, for example, I have counted macros. I've counted calories. I went to Weight Watchers when I was like 15, and my husband's like, you tell the story all the time. I'm like, yeah, but this is my point. Like, I grew up with that, and I got into it deeper as a teenager and then as a young adult. And so when I look at an egg and I can mentally say how many points that is, like, if that works for people, great. You know what I mean? But for me, that has caused a lot of issues. Like, and, I've healed from a lot of them, and I continue to work on my thought process around food, but it's still there. So I think recognizing, okay, like, well, why did you make that decision? And I guess food's just an easy one to talk about because we all have to eat. Like we all have emotions. And at one point they usually overlap for men and women. So it's just like evaluating that of like, well, where did that thought come from? And like, did someone tell me that thought, or did I tell myself that thought? Is that a healthy thought? Is it not? Does it serve me? Does it not serve me? And kind of like just slowing down to really acknowledge it. I think it's just a hard thing because no one really wants to slow down. We all want to go, go, go. But when you do slow down and you work through those, you are so much more successful. Like you are going to feel so much more energetic. You're going to feel more present in your moments as a mom, as a business owner, as an employee. So
yes. Yeah. And it allows, most people kind of forget that we were biologically, as human beings, we were designed to kind of operate, right? Like our stress was only meant to be very few things, whereas our stress today could be a million different things. And so like the constant running, the constant like mental energy production and the physical just like never slowing down, our bodies quite literally think we're in danger 24/7. And so our bodies don't heal in that mode. Most people are looking to do some version of healing. And I always say, like, you can't run 1,000,000 miles a minute and also, get your body to be in a healthy, restorative, reparative, healing state. They just they don't coexist together. It's really hard to do that. And so when we're talking about getting people to be healthier or to feel better, it's so important to at least, again, create that awareness and the emotional balance against like, this is a frequency that's not really going to get you that.
Yes. And deep down, I feel like every client I've seen, they know it. It's just a matter of bringing it out of them and being like, and I've done a couple like emotional release sessions with clients that I felt fitting. And it's very powerful, like to release that. And it's like something that they knew was there, but, for some reason, we just stay in that zone and we, like you said, put our heads down and we're like, hey, we're going to go do this. And especially a lot of the business women, a lot of the business owners that I work with that are also women, I see them and I'm like, you got to make that lunch hour break. What do you mean? Like if you were working for someone else, like you would have had that break. Like you should have requested that break. So like, let me tell you, you need to give yourself that break, like, to sit down and eat your lunch. And it's really is small things that we need reminders in. And that's just, they make the biggest changes when you start implementing them consecutively.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm curious if I'd like to switch gears just a little bit, because I'm curious if you see, so what is kind of the most, I should say like emotional block or emotional balance, like issue that you see with clients getting from like that point of being completely unaware of it to actually finding some awareness and is it just that like you bring it forth? Do you find that they need to arrive there on their own terms? Like what tends to be the thing that brings it out and kind of allows it to heal a little bit on its own?
Yeah, I think that as an IHP, like really asking the questions and asking the right questions. I prefer for things to come out first. I do educate on the 9 toxic emotions. And I find that most women land on like the fear and the guilt. Guilt is like a big one too, or disappointment. So I do an exercise where I have the paper out and I read through the toxic emotions with them. I have them write it out on a piece of paper. And then we go through, I play some music and we have oils in my office so they can use all the oils that smell right to them. And then I just let them have that moment. Like it's almost like a meditative practice where they are writing down, I just say whatever memories come to your mind, if the person comes to your mind. And so they have all the toxic emotions written out and they just fill the paper with it. And it's honestly, I work on not being so emotional myself because I feel it in the moment of like, wow, this is really, and they're all after the session, they'll tell me there's things that came up that I never thought would come up that I never knew were even an issue. And so then it's on them to do their homework to go back and really reflect on it and go deeper into those emotions and those memories and those thoughts and maybe have those conversations or not, do whatever they feel like they need to continue to heal from it. But every single time things come up under almost every emotion. So, it's like a very powerful exercise and I look forward to continuing that in my practice and developing it to see what that's going to look like. But I really think, like you said, to kind of answer your question is to be able to draw it out in someone is much more powerful than for me to say it to them. So, if it does come up, even if I do mention one, it sounds like that's a thought that is a little coming from a fearful state. Let's talk about that a little bit more. And then, allowing them to think it through and me just posing the questions. Well, when did you first have that thought? Or did, like I said, did someone tell you that? Or and just let them arrive to what they feel like is the alternative thought, the more positive one about themselves or their body or their family or their job, whatever the stress trigger is, because that's a big one.
Yeah. I totally, and asking the questions, it kind of just opens it up, right? Like you're not saying, I need you to name like your fear, your disappointment, you're asking questions that just simply like prompts them to think. And sometimes, having somebody say something to you and then reflecting it back to them. Sometimes, I use that technique where you can reflect back. Like what I think I hear you saying is, X, Y, and Z. And then they might say, actually that is what I'm saying. Or like, actually, no. And it just allows them to almost like refine their thought. Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
Whole, like drawing thing, that's a technique that a lot of people use with kids. Like, oh, you're feeling really sad. Why don't you draw what sad feels like? Yeah. But we always forget that like, we're just big kids. Everybody thinks like, oh, that's silly. Like you're not going to like draw diagrams and write things that are fearful and disappointing, but it can be so healing for adults in the same way that it is. And again, just allowing holding space for somebody to process feelings and emotions, which nobody does, on a day-to-day basis, unless you're very in tune to this stuff. It's just something that most people don't do. And so having someone hold a space for you to do that can be so transformative.
Oh, I love that you said that about being a child too, because like the last 8 months of my own personal healing journey and helping others too is that I've reflected on that a lot, just like the inner child and thinking about memories, like good and maybe not so good coming up from childhood and kind of reflecting on those. And it's why I'll never miss an opportunity to paint with my kids. Like if they're painting, I'm like, okay, let's paint. Like I'm going to paint. Like, I don't know what I'm painting, but you got getting that out. It just feels so good. And we do, I think as a culture, we kind of maybe even poke fun at some of those things. And I stopped saying, I stopped calling what I do alternative healthcare. It's holistic healthcare. It's integrative health. There's nothing alternative about it. I love the Ayurveda techniques. I love all of that. And even just like you said, some simple exercise like that, how much good that can do for a stress on someone and how much good that can do for their mind and their body. It's huge. And to be that person to hold the space, it's a big job. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be, but it's the most rewarding one. I really can't think of something better to help someone with than their health or their healing journey, whether that be through emotions, through food, through cycle syncing, with their hormones, getting those back balanced. And then those who are ready to really go deeper into root cause. That's honestly where I'm most passionate about, but I also understand that when I first started my holistic journey 8 years ago, I really wasn't ready probably to hear all of the things that come along with that. And it's been an 8-year journey to get myself where I am. So people who want to just get started, I do have a passion. I have a strong heart for them too, because I understand what it's like to be in that situation when you're like, oh, perfume is bad for me. Okay, what do I use? Oh, I shouldn't wash my hair with this that coats my hair and it's going to probably fall. I'm just oh, I forget. I forget that I was also there at one point. And, seeing a lot of IHPs with so much great information, especially on social media and everywhere. I've really just been kind of evaluating, looking, what's everyone else doing, kind of getting my feelers out there. And, I feel like there's so much great information and everyone out there really needs to hear it. But I didn't see a lot about emotional balance. I didn't see a lot about speaking to the heart of things, speaking to the heart of the problem. And so I'm going to continue to see where that takes me in my practice, as well as the root cause healing. So.
Yes. Yeah. And it really, again, can be something that's so pivotal for someone to shift from one. And like you said, for somebody who has a lot of fear and emotional blocks and, maybe shame or guilt, whatever that then maybe they can't hear the conversation about the perfume and the shampoo that they love, but you uncover that. And then those conversations are easier for some people.
Yes. Yeah.
They're just tell me what I need to do. I'll do it. There's those people that are I'll get rid of whatever you want me to get rid of. I'll buy whatever you need me to buy. Just tell me what to do. And so meeting clients where they're at is, always the name of the game. And that's typically a skill. I think that it takes, in my opinion, something that isn't very teachable. And I think that, all IHPs, I think we all have something so, connected, because like we truly have the ability to sense, find compassion, connection, and want to truly serve, help. But we also are able to kind of meet clients in a way that someone who doesn't have that intuitive type of way about them might be harder for them.
Yes, I love that. And, I definitely have been humbled in the process, because I've always considered myself very intuitive and empathetic. And, I really love people so much and want to help them. And I had my first couple practice clients back like in May. And I was so excited that I definitely was probably pretty overwhelming. So it's like you said, it's something not necessary. It's you just kind of get in the groove of it. And now when I talk to clients, I'm like, okay, I get it. And I look back on, they're mostly friends. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was probably really overwhelming. Like, it's okay, and they're all doing great. It's a very open, the people I took on for practice, it was an open communication during that time about it. And, but it's when you have such a burning passion to help people, sometimes it can be hard, but the results you see as a practitioner from listening and asking questions and letting people arrive and knowing that those results that you're going to help them with are going to go with them much further than me telling them what to do. That is what's most enjoyable to me. But I love people who come in the office who are just like, what do I need ever? Like, tell me everything. And I'm like, okay, like, here you go. Like, here's a big old thing. This is what you got to do. So you're right. It's just meeting people with where they're at. I don't want to hinder someone in their process. And like, I'm not going to baby you down. I'm not, if you want to know nitty gritty, like, here it is. This is what you got to do. But for people who come in, and I could tell they're a little apprehensive about getting into the holistic side of things, almost feeling like they're going against the grain. I'm like, I get it. But like, here's one little step you're going to take today and it's going to be great. So.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I couldn't agree more. Could you share with our listeners where they might find you on social media or a website if they're looking to kind of connect with you further or learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm mostly on Instagram. It's just Alisha Banks with 2 underscores. I'm in the process of rebranding for the new year. So you can keep an eye out for that. But right now I'm just on my main page and my site is up in my bio. And I do discovery calls. So if you want to just chat a little bit more, mostly focusing on women's health right now and hormones, as well as the emotional balance and mindset.
That's great. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Practitioner podcast. It was such a pleasure getting to know you and having this conversation. I think it is going to bring a lot of value to our listeners. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Julia.
Okay. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.